Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world, and a huge welcome to today's Postgrad Insight session. We're joined today by Professor Selway from the University of Buckingham, who's going to be talking you through a very unique opportunity within the medicine industry and field. So for those of you that have registered and are interested in finding out more about this, please stay tuned. There will be a Q&A at the end of the session. If you've missed anything, it's a live session. It will be on demand. It will be on YouTube. It will also be on postgrad.com's website on the homepage also. But for now, I'd like to hand you over to Professor Selway. If anyone has any questions or concerns, please do put it in the chat facility. Over to you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's talk, which I'm going to basically tell you about everything you need to know about our medicine program at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences at the University of Buckingham. So my name is Professor Joanne Selway, and I'm the Phase 1 lead in the medical school. That basically means I look after the first 2 years of the course on our campus. But I have lots of hats. So I do lots of other things, including getting involved in the selection process. So being the academic in charge of how we select people onto our course. So I'm hoping I'll be able to give you some insights into our program, but also some insights into how you might get onto our program if you're interested in the future. So the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences opened our medical school in 2015. I was there for that. It was very exciting. And we took our first 4.5 years through that course to get our GMC accreditation in 2019. And in the UK, there's a huge number of medical schools, but there are lots of new medical schools who are also going through this GMC accreditation process. And you never get that accreditation until you've graduated students. So you might have some questions around GMC accreditation. And if you're looking at a variety of different schools, just make sure you understand where they are in that process. So far at Buckingham, we've actually had 5 cohorts of students that have graduated from our course. And we admit roughly 200 students a year. So that's quite a lot of students we've seen go through our course and be successful at the other end. And we do this in a number of different ways in which integrates with other courses within our faculty. We have both a pre-med course, which I'm going to talk about later as an access to medicine course, a different pathway into medicine. We have postgraduate courses in medical education. We have international graduate courses for doctors, which are MMeds and MSurg, which are for international medical graduates. We have MSCs in research you can get involved in as alumni or as new individuals to the university. So altogether, our faculty has a real focus on healthcare and biological science. Hopefully that's working now. So our principles are essentially have a focus on small group facilitation. We do sometimes offer that sharing of lectures across our campus, streaming into various different locations. But actually, the work and the learning we feel gets done in our small group activities. And you can see a picture of some of our students working in those activities here. We have the room set up in small groups where people discuss the content that will have been delivered to them, whether that's on the anatomy of the abdomen, as you can see here, or if that's clinical communication skills. And that small group focus means that we have educators in that room that know you very, very well, and therefore can understand what you need to get out of that learning as an individual student. We have clinical skills development and placement experience very early in our course to make sure that you're putting the theory and the application discussions into practice. And many people can say this, an innovative curriculum and very forward thinking, because COVID has given us a real boost in innovation. It's given us a way of thinking about healthcare and healthcare delivery that hasn't changed in many years. And actually, as a relatively small university, we can adopt some of that innovative thinking in a much quicker and agile way. And that relates also to some of the changes that are happening in education settings around AI and medtech and edtech. Technology is on a huge exponential growth at the moment, and we can incorporate that innovation and forward thinking very quickly into our curriculum. Fundamentally, one of our commitments is to interprofessional learning, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the events that we run called the Major Incident Exercise, which actually I'm running next week, where we bring lots of different professionals together as a sort of flagship of our interprofessional learning environment. Because as a graduate in the UK NHS environment, you're going to be working with lots of different individuals. So understanding that interprofessional learning and working environment is key. Because we've designed our course with future careers in mind. Most graduates of a medicine course go on to work in the medical field, but actually not all work in the same discipline. So we give you a range of different experiences to make sure that you understand the options that are available to you. So if you were interested in studying medicine at the University of Buckingham, here are some key things that you might want to know about. I said earlier, we have roughly 200 seats for medicine every year. Interestingly, compared to other UK medical schools, we have no cap on international student numbers, meaning that we can take the best candidates for medicine, irrespective of their nationality or where they live, their domicile. So that is because the University of Buckingham doesn't accept government funding, and all funding is directly from student fees. So we don't have to have those restrictions on the number of places for international students. However, it's not as simple as there's a space, you pay your money and you get on. We do make sure that we are selecting the right people to enter into the healthcare profession. And we do that by using digital, multiple mini assessments and multiple mini interviews. And essentially, this is a selection process that allows us to see your skills, your values and attributes, and whether you're a good fit for both Buckingham and the healthcare environment. At Buckingham, because of our lack of international cap, we have a lot of experience in supporting international students, both at an individual and a population level. So we understand some of those transitions that international students and some British students have when going to university for the first or even the second time at a postgraduate level. Buckingham isn't a vibrant city. I think we have to be very upfront about that. It is a town in the middle of England, and you can see it on the map here. It is perfectly situated between some very key centres, including Oxford, Cambridge, Milton Keynes, and London. But because it's a bit quieter than those locations, we have a real focus on studying rather than the socialization, which you can get to by going to those other centres. So the campus itself, as I said, is located in the heart of England. It is a safe campus environment set in a small, quaint town. So it is beautiful. I will say that. If you do get a chance to come to campus, you will see the beauty of it. We do have really good transport links both to Milton Keynes, Oxford, London, and Cambridge. And we have all of our facilities on site, including accommodation. Everything is within walkable distance. Although saying that, we do have a thriving taxi set of companies as well. As you can see on a sort of more map-based representation of our campus, there's a lot of green spaces and we have a river running through. The medical school building is at the bottom. Yeah, so at the bottom of the map here. It's the Chandos Road building, and it sits slightly apart from the main campus and allows all of our healthcare-related activities to be located within this building. We have accommodation both here, and over here. I think there may be some more, but that's the extent of my knowledge of that. So the accommodation that's guaranteed for first-year students is really accessible to the heart of the campus, but also to the medical school building. So our program, again, it is slightly different to many of the medicine programs within the UK. It is 4.5 years rather than a 5, 6, or even sometimes 7-year course. And as I mentioned earlier, it's been GMC accredited since 2019. It is an undergraduate program, but graduates can apply with their graduate qualifications. We'll come to that in a second. We manage that half year by having a January start date. And that means that you can have a mini gap between your exams, or if you've got qualifications in some parts of the world finish in December, you can go straight into a January start. Because we are GMC accredited, we have access to the foundation training program directly via graduation. It's a direct route to access NHS training foundation places. And all of our students are eligible, irrespective of their nationality. And we really do design our course and evolve our course to meet the evolving challenges of healthcare. We have very modern teaching methods that's very much focused on active learning and case-based discussion. We have a solid grounding in the sciences, but that's not to create biomedical sciences. That is to ensure that you know the science for that structured and meaningful clinical contact, to understand what underpins that clinical expertise. And that small group educational model makes sure nobody gets lost in our system and that everybody gets the teaching that they need. Everybody loves a curriculum map, so I always put one in my presentations. But essentially, the take-home messages that I want you to get from this is that our course is made from phase 1 at the top here and phase 2. Phase 1 is 2 years that is campus-focused education. So the majority of your time is spent at the Buckingham campus. Phase 2 is 2.5 years, where the majority of your time is spent at a single base hospital. And that's, again, different to some courses where you go have 6 weeks in one hospital, 6 weeks in another, a few weeks here and a few weeks there. Because being based in one hospital means that you can create a community and a support system and a network and be able to focus on, rather than being able to log into the next bit of IT, the learning and the experiences to develop you as a good clinician. In phase 1, we have 3 terms a year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and big exams at the end of each year, including clinical assessments. But there are intermediate exams at the end of each term, which all count towards progression. In phase 2, you have exams at the end of each year, including your finals, in which the medical licensing assessment, the MLA, is built into your final assessment. Happy to answer any specific questions that people may have around any of that. But like I say, people like to see a curriculum map. However, we all know that being a doctor doesn't require you to remember what was in that one lecture on week 5 of that particular module. Being a doctor and working successfully in healthcare requires you to integrate your learning. So we set up our learning in our course to be integrated. So we teach you how to do that. We blend clinical and biomedical science in phase 1 with an emphasis on how the science relates to clinical practice, not just learning science because it's interesting, even though sometimes it is. We guide your learning. So we don't abandon you with lots of information and say, go learn this. We practice a guided learning through cases and clinical information with regular clinical interactions and placements from early in year 1 all the way through to when you go full-time in phase 2. And those full-time places are with one of 5 clinical partners. So you can see we've got 5 different hospitals in the UK that you might be placed in for your last 2.5 years of your course. And they are national. So we have some in the south, some in the north, and you spend the majority of your time at one of these base hospitals. However, hospitals are not the only place where clinical care happens. And we also put you in placements that are close to these hospitals to experience specialist mental health, community medicine, and primary care to ensure that you understand that full breadth of clinical interaction. So everybody's always interested in the end point as well. So 4.5 years after you register for your course, hopefully you will have passed all of your exams and you can graduate. And you graduate with this Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery degree, the MBCHB, which is a master's level, although it's two bachelors together. So it's a historic name, and it's equivalent to an MBBS. Okay? So they mean the same thing. One is derived from one Latin term and one's derived from another Latin term. That's as much Latin as I know. So we are listed, Buckingham is listed, and our course is listed in the World Directory of Medical Schools, and therefore it's recognized internationally. And whilst you may still have to sit some conversion exams, depending on the countries that you go to, you should be able to convert your degree into something useful in whichever country you want to work in. However, the medical licensing exam, the assessment that's coming in at the finals level across all medical schools in the UK, may change some of those provisional registrations with various different councils. So we don't know yet the landscape and what the international picture will be. So please make sure you take some advice from whichever country you're looking at practicing within. But the MLA exam will provide you with a provisional license to practice in the UK if you're successful in passing it. It will also allow you entrance into the UK Foundation Programme. And if you complete year one of that foundation programme, you get full registration with the GMC. So we'd always advise our students to do at least that first year in the UK in the foundation system to get that full licensing. So this is what I was talking about earlier. This is one of our flagship events for interprofessional learning, and it's one of our unique learning experiences that we've built into our programme at the University of Buckingham. The major incident is essentially a high fidelity, very realistic pre-hospital simulation where we get our emergency services involved in a mass casualty event. Please be aware the injuries that you're seeing on these pictures are moulage, they're makeup. So we get student makeup artists involved in theatre productions usually to get involved with this event and put makeup on our actors. And then we run with the actors, with the emergency services, with our students, a simulated event with, last year it was 150 year 3 students. We've got slightly more than that next year. We've got our journalism students involved. We've got members of the public that get involved to essentially practice the field hospital setup, the triaging activities, and how to respond to something that's very realistic and emotive in its appearance. So it gives you the opportunity to work with a different set of professionals that interact with healthcare, as well as those within the healthcare environment. And it's a really interesting and exciting part of our course. So hopefully you're now really excited about medicine at the University of Buckingham. And you're thinking, have I got the entry requirements? Have I got the grades, the academic achievements that I need? This page, I'm not going to go through it in lots of detail, but essentially gives you a summary of some key entry requirements that we use a lot. We have entry requirements listed for every single country in the world on our website. So I implore you to go and have a look if you can't immediately see your qualification here. But key ones are that we accept graduates with a 2-1 degree in a subject that's related to medicine. We're ABB at A-level and 34 points at IB. We also have our pre-med course, which can give you entry into our medicine course. Importantly, as well as the no cap on international students, we do not require a national entry exam, such as a UCAT or a BMAT or a GAMSAT. None of those are required for Buckingham. We may require some English language qualifications, depending on where you've done your studies, and we may need them for visa compliance as well as course entry. So talk to us, find out your individual circumstances and your individual entry requirements. So a little note on our pre-med or our Cert HE course. And this is essentially a 9-month course that's ideal for students that do have a very solid academic potential, but have not yet met the eligibility requirements for medicine. You must sit our MMA to get into our pre-med course, our multiple mini assessment, one of our selection processes. But if you get onto pre-med and study pre-med, get a 70% on that course, you're eligible for an unconditional offer into our medicine program. So you can see the entry requirements are slightly lower for this, although the English language requirements may be very similar. Again, happy to either answer some questions now on the Cert HE or direct you to either our website or admissions team who can answer very personalized questions for you. So our application process, to give you the full spectrum, pre-application inquiries are really recommended. And by being here at this webinar today, you're finding out all the things that you hopefully will need to know to make an informed decision about whether to make an application. And we accept applications from candidates either via UCAS or via direct application on our website. So if you don't want to use up one of your UCAS options, you can apply to us directly. We offer all candidates who are academically suitable an interview. So if you meet the entry requirements or are predicted to meet those entry requirements, we will send you an interview invite. We have interviews scattered throughout the year, and then 4 weeks afterwards, we give you a decision. It's very quick, it's very streamlined, and hopefully it's very supportive in its approach. Important, the money. We do charge for our undergraduate course. And for UK students, we're looking at £40,000 a year from January 25, and international students at £45,000 a year from January 25, with inflation measures put on those costs year on year. When you're looking at scholarships and bursaries, we do have a small number of scholarships and bursaries applicable to our medicine students. They're not going to financially support you entirely through that fee structure, but do have a look at them and see if you are eligible and how that impacts the affordability for you on paying those fees. And do remember that as well as paying the fees, you do have to live. And there is a range of different diets for our medical students on our course. I heard one of our doctors the other day say that they survived on biscuits and beer. I don't advocate that at all, but that probably is a different cost to somebody else who likes the finer things in life. So this is a guesstimate, an average, an idea for you to how much it might cost to live as a student in the UK. So you need to think about things like accommodation, groceries, and socializing costs. Think about bills, but also other costs. If you particularly like going to the gym, if you like going on holiday, if you want to have more books, then you need to think about these particular sets of costs. So I'm very aware by this point in my presentation that I've done a lot of talking about Buckingham and what I think are really good things about it. And so what I like to try and do is give some voices to other people and look at what other people have said about our course and what our regulators say about our course. The information on our course via the GMC is available for anybody to go and have a look at. So please do go and view both for us and for anybody else that you're interested in applying to. But hopefully what these quotes illustrate is that Buckingham is a community. It's a family. We look after each other. We know each other really well, but we provide a quality experience that gets you through medicine and graduates you into the healthcare system to be a successful doctor. So thank you very much for listening to me talking through my slides and seeing my notes earlier. If you do want to keep in touch with us, we have a variety of different social media platforms that you can follow us on, or please do just talk to our admissions team about your personal situation and what we can do to make sure that you're a part of our extended family from either this January or beyond. Thank you very much.
Professor Selway, thank you very much. If you're okay, I'm just going to leave that screen where it is, because I think if students have any questions, then it's got it all on the screen. So I was going to start with some of the more academic questions, but you had me at biscuit and beer with one of those students, so I'm not sure where better to start, really. For those watching, and I suppose this is very different to other webinars that we might do in the sense that, it's all about where you're going to study and the social life and getting to know people, the culture of the students that you're with. Although that does play some element in terms of where they want to study, people watching this, no doubt the type of education they're going to receive through Buckingham will be, like you mentioned, I love the word family earlier. Everyone's treated like a family member within the university. Does that help a student really, what's the best way of putting it, hone in on their studies and make sure that they get the best possible result?
It's a really good question. And there are kind of two sides to it. So what we try and do at Buckingham is make sure that in the personal tutor model that we've got is that every student has a named academic person that is their base point. And I don't want to say parent because that's a bit paternalistic, but it's essentially their member of staff that checks them, that checks in on them, but also might give them a check if they need that check. And that can be a really useful way of making sure that people are doing what they're meant to be doing and that feeling that they belong at an institution. And I think belonging is something that perhaps has not so prevalent in the healthcare system in recent years, for lots of reasons. And I think it is that human connection that provides that. But on the other side of that coin, it's a requirement for the students to take that leap and be part of something as well. So there's an open door in Buckingham to be part of that community. And we want students to step in and take their role in that too.
And likewise, we were talking before the webinar about the boom almost in the amount of students looking to study within medicine related courses, in particular in the UK. And obviously, whilst the COVID pandemic was so disastrous for so many people around the world, it did open up new opportunities and new horizons for students all over the globe to come to the UK at a future date and get their ducks in a row and make sure that everything is ready for their career. How many international students do you have at the university? And therefore, because of that family kind of ethos that you've got, how important is that when it comes to making sure a student feels welcomed when they first arrived and that they're not alone, which I suppose is what can happen when they go to a London or a Birmingham, like you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, no, it's really important. So we roughly have, it's year on year, it's very, it varies a little, but it's somewhere between 55 and 50% of our cohort. So what's that? 110 to 100 students in our 200 that will be international. So actually the majority of our students are international students or internationally domiciled students. And what that means is that there's a shared experience with those students that allows them to both make connections with each other, where in other situations they may not have been natural friends because they're experiencing that change in a very similar way. And we have 72, I think at the last count, different nationalities on our course. So it's a very multicultural experience, which is so enriching when it comes to being part of that healthcare environment in the UK, which has that same demographic. And I think it is important that we've got experience of all of those different situations. But actually, again, the student body provides a lot of that support in their own structure because they're all experiencing and have experienced that. So the years above will have experienced what the new ones coming in are experiencing. Yeah. So it is part of our DNA, essentially. And you'll find out about DNA if you sign up for the term one.
And I want to talk about the location. I know you did a nice piece in the presentation about where you guys are based, because I always think it's important to point out that although, myself, I'm from the southwest of England, we really are miles away from everywhere in the UK.
Yeah.
But Buckingham, although it's out of the way, you are really only an hour away from being in Birmingham, Oxford, London, Milton Keynes, which is, almost a hub now for a lot of the UK big companies around the world. The students that come to the UK quite often are from huge countries where you have to travel 4 hours to get to the nearest other city. So I think it's always important to note that although you are out the way, you're tucked in a major city. Don't think it plays too major part. And I think a big thing is affordability. You mentioned then about cost of living. You've got to be able to live. It's 4.5 years rather than your standard perhaps 6 or 7 years to qualify. Well, over those 4.5 years, you're going to have to live. You're going to have to socialize.
Absolutely.
It's damn more affordable in Buckingham, no doubt. I mean, I've never been to Buckingham myself, but I can almost guarantee it's cheaper in Buckingham than it is in London. And that's
Yes.
got to be key.
Absolutely. And I think you're right that um, Buckingham itself, from our front door, which I can look at right down there, to London is an hour
Yeah.
on the train. So Milton Keynes has a direct line. Fast trains are less than half an hour. My husband gets it when he goes into London every day. So it is very, very well connected. And when you look at all 5 of our hospitals where we place students, every single one of them is on the main line into London as well. I think the furthest is probably Macclesfield, but even then the direct train is an hour and a half. So
Yeah.
it's not a huge country, and our placements and our campus are very, very well connected. And I'm not dissing London, but it wouldn't be my choice. I like that we have Silverstone up the road. It's a hub of different sorts of activities, and it isn't for everybody. And I think that's really important, that as you're making your choices, that you're making choices that fit you, because you're going to be more successful if you're in a place that actually is a good fit for you and you're a good fit for the university. So this is really about making the right choices, gathering the right information, and probably, I hope, while everybody's listening to this.
Absolutely. I echo all your thoughts. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to, for 5 minutes, we're just going to talk through some of the questions that have come in. One that's really caught my eye is asking specifically about our social students applicable for the program to join. Now, we mentioned again before the webinar, it's important to emphasize that you don't have to have the word medicine in a title to apply for a course that you guys are offering. So again, how important is that, and how much emphasis goes on that when they're applying?
Really great question. So we talk about if you're a graduate, you have to have a degree in something related to medicine. That is purposefully vague because we take a decision on not a case by case basis. But if you come across a course that we haven't heard of before, we go and have a look at it and make a judgment on it. So some examples of the types of courses that we do accept. For example, we accept psychology, which isn't within the normal spectrum of some universities. We do look at things more like social and healthcare, social sciences to some extent, depending on what mix of modules you've got in there. So my best advice would be to ring us up or send us an email and ask. I like saying yes more than I like saying no. Because I think the skills that those courses give you are very, very important for a healthcare sector that is, in my opinion, far too focused on whether you know about the electron chains in an atom.
Excellent. And just following up on that a little bit, staying more academic wise, you put a great, and you're right, everyone loves a curriculum map. Everyone does it. It's so easy to see. It's like a brainstorm. It's fantastic. How important is it to emphasize that this isn't like any other normal master's degree? This is an undergraduate degree that anyone from undergraduate level to master's level can apply for. People might see it and go, undergrad, not for me, but that's not the case, is it? Because it is 4.5 years instead of 6 or 7.
It's 4.5 years at level 7, and level 7 is master's level. So a master's level right from the very beginning of the course. And it's master's level because whilst some of the theory that you're talking about is possibly, you'll find in other lower courses, it's about the application of that theory and putting that into clinical practice. And most of the people that come onto our course that are graduates actually work with that much quicker and get to grips with it much quicker because of the skills they've got. So we love them. We love graduates.
Yeah.
But it is important, I think, to know that there will be people coming straight from A-level. But that also gives you an opportunity as a graduate to do that mentoring, to be that peer leader, to take leadership roles. And those leadership roles, if you can evidence them, are gold for as you're going through the medicine course, you're picking out your specialty training options. So there's really inbuilt opportunities to develop even from the earliest point in the course when looking at your career when you graduate.
Excellent. Two more questions. I think everyone asking funding and scholarship questions. I think whilst we'd love to go into every question and every detail, there are links. I know Anastasia in the background has been putting links into the chat facility. If you're interested, like Professor Selway mentioned, phone, ask. It doesn't do any harm. They'd love to say yes if they can, and they'll help you and point you in the right direction if they can't. So two questions. First one would be, and I think this is a great question linked to what you kind of just mentioned, is do you take transfer students? So if someone's currently doing their first year in another uni, say Oxford or Cambridge, and they decided they wanted to come to you instead, does that first year count, or does that kind of never happened almost?
I mean, I'd love to say I could do it, but I can't. And because it is application based and it is applying those concepts, it never really is a transfer opportunity. So we currently don't accept transfer students. You would have to start the course again. But I can guarantee if you've done a first year of a biological science degree somewhere or something of that ilk, you're going to be more prepared going into those first stages, because hopefully you've been successful and you've got that theory under your belt. So you can start applying that theory very confidently from the beginning.
So, and finally, can we talk about that's not really been mentioned, to be honest, the English language requirement. In so many places, it's IELTS 6.5. It might be higher, it might be lower. I'm guessing it's pretty standard across the board.
It is pretty standard. And if you're not aware of why it's standard, there is a GMC standard, so a general medical school standard for IELTS levels. And actually, it's an IELTS level when you graduate, which is why there may be a bit of variation. But actually, a lot of the requirements come through visa requirements. And that is something that we just cannot. That's a government regulation. I'd love to be able to change government policy, but currently not within my remit. So some of it is GMC dictated, and some of it is visa related. So again, it will vary depending on the individual, but there are some parameters, and they are all listed on our website if you wanted to look at them. But again, my advice, and they'll love me in the admissions office, give them a call, because that's what they're there for. They're there to give you personalized advice, whatever your circumstances.
Okay, and just finally to wrap up, just off that question then, and this is a question for me really, what partnerships with local national businesses do you guys have that when they've done their 4.5 years, where do they go from there? Where do a lot of your students, do they stay in Buckingham? Do they stay in the UK? Do they go back to their respective countries? What do you see as a trend, and what's the ideal scenario?
I'd say 99% of our students enter into the UK foundation system, which is healthcare, which is working in the NHS. Those that don't tend to go back to their home countries to work in healthcare there. But what we have seen is people are doing that foundation program, getting their full GMC registration, and then diversifying. So we're seeing a lot of people at that 2 years post-graduation going into pharmaceutical companies, for example, or going into scientific writing. We've seen people go spin out companies and created their own clinical innovative products. So the joy of a medicine degree is that there is a very structured postgraduate route if you want it. But the skills that you develop on a medicine course allow so many doors to be opened in other disciplines that value good communication skills, that value the ability to work with numbers, the ability to understand people, and the ability to be a leader, whether you've got authority in your position or not. So medicine's a great career choice, whatever your career happens to be.
Completely agree. Professor Selway, thanks for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I think the Q&A has been great at the end, actually. Some really good questions. Some of them do test you. I know you'll probably go, I know them, but there's no denying that these are always different questions. That's what's so great about webinars. It throws at different things. And
I love a webinar, so thank you.
Different nationality. So thank you for taking part. Thank you to Anastasia in the background as well. Now, just before we do go, I know a few people have been asking about our scholarship, Postgrad Solutions, that we offer bursary. We're currently taking applications for £2,000 bursaries. Any student anywhere around the world can win this. There is one lucky winner that will be watching a webinar in 2024 that will win this. So by registering and watching live, you are in the hat to win that. We will be sending out more information via email. If you have any more questions about anything that's been spoken about by Professor Selway or anything that Anastasia has put in the chat in the background, they have your details. They will be in touch. We'll be in touch also. But for now, thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing your questions, and we want to make sure you watch on demand, and I'm sure you will. Thank you. Bye-bye.